Arizona Cardinals, who would get Brandon Aiyuk and the 49ers' fourth round pick, number 135 this year. And the Niners would get the Cardinals' first rounder and their fifth rounder. Now, maybe the guy that you could find to help Kittle in that tight end room could be someone who was a return piece in a potential Brandon Aiyuk trade. And Larry, if you're all done on tight ends and Kittles, that's where I think should take the show, because we know that San Francisco, if they are to trade Brandon Aiyuk, wants a haul. They want at least a first round pick and a player. Reportedly, the Jacksonville Jaguars were asked for a first rounder and Zay Jones, and you know who said that was just a little bit too rich for his blood, so he wasn't going to do that. Larry Lowry, not going to do it. But potential suitors are going to have to give up, not only draft capital, but probably a spare part as well. So I was reading in Bleacher Report, again, take any Bleacher Report, here's what we're thinking article with a grain of salt, but they came up with a few different teams, and some options that could actually land that team a shot at Brandon Aiyuk. And so let's just start with a division rival who I think is probably the least likely to be, on the table of doing business with for the 49ers in terms of Brandon Aiyuk. You don't want him haunting you twice a year. But the first team up was the Arizona Cardinals, who would get Brandon Aiyuk and the 49ers' fourth round pick, number 135 this year. And the Niners would get the Cardinals' first rounder and their fifth rounder. Doesn't feel like that would be enough. And it's also a team you don't want to do business with.
I mean, yeah. Do you want to send? I mean, the Cardinals badly need Aiyuk. I mean, look at their depth chart. They've got Michael Wilson in year 2 out of Stanford. Greg Dortch, right? Who's Greg Dortch? Chris Moore. I mean, it's Zach Pascal. They don't have any receivers. So you'd be handing, Arizona a receiver. They've already got a really good tight end in Trey McBride. They've got a nice running back in James Conner. It's like, do you really want an improving offensive line? They just signed Jonah Williams to play left tackle. You got Paris Johnson at right. Do you really want to hand them in the division Aiyuk?
No.
I would say no.
But what you're looking for is a dance partner who needs a premier wide receiver. And so I think that's what the rest of this list comes from. And the Cardinals are in that camp. And now all of a sudden, the Buffalo Bills find themselves in that camp after moving on from Stephon Diggs, who, again, you look at the Diggs trade. Now, Diggs has got all sorts of, I don't want to say on-field or off-field issues, but how great of a teammate, how hard he's going to work when he sort of mentally checks out is part of the reason why he got traded, part of the reason why the Bills are moving on. Brandon Aiyuk doesn't have any of those red flags on him. But the Buffalo Bills,
I mean, they could fleece Buffalo, you would think, right? I mean, look at Buffalo's receivers. They got Khalil Shakir from Boise.
He's the only guy who's caught a pass from Josh Allen on the roster.
Right. I mean, they're in their Super Bowl window. I think they just got leveraged, in a big way and were forced to move Diggs. But what do they got? They got Curtis Samuel and Khalil Shakir, and that's it. Mac Hollins. I mean, they're totally naked at wide receiver. And so, I mean, if they call, man, I mean, the price has got to be really high.
I think that the Bills,
you don't want to give them an advantage either. I mean, they're a Super Bowl contender.
I mean, they are, Larry, but I also think they're removed. I think that in the handful of Super Bowl contenders, you're either trying to get to the front of the line or you're retreating to the back of it. I think the Bills are retreating to the back of that line of Super Bowl contenders more than they're rushing to the front of it.
Well, they're rushing to the front of it if you trade them Aiyuk. So that's, I think if they could go from Diggs to Aiyuk, I think they will have upgraded. Diggs is a diva. Diggs is 30. Aiyuk is 26. Aiyuk blocks down the field. Ayuk's blue collar. I mean, his best football's coming. That's why if the price tag's got to be really high for Buffalo.
Well, the Bills would get Brandon Aiyuk, and the 49ers would walk away with the Bills' first-round pick, number 28, and a 2025 fourth-rounder. So Bleacher Report saying you're not even going to get 2 picks in this draft for Brandon Aiyuk. I don't agree with that. I'm turning that down, too.
because Buffalo's over a barrel, and you saw Brandon Beane, the general manager, yesterday. He's like, well, the season hasn't started yet, and we're committed to building this roster out as best we can, and it would have to be a very, very one-sided deal for the Niners to move him to Buffalo, in my mind.
I'd need 2 2024 picks.
Definitely.
Yeah.
High picks.
The Los Angeles Chargers, Brandon Aiyuk and a 49ers 6th rounder for a 2024 second rounder, a 2024 4th rounder, and a 2025 conditional day 2 pick. So 2 picks in the draft, 2nd and a 4th, and a day 2 pick in 2025 for Brandon Aiyuk. And you're throwing in your 6th rounder this year to get that deal done. I don't think I like that either.
Yeah, that's not a good deal. The other reason this one is kind of, I don't really entertain this one very, very, the Chargers have, some cap issues. I mean, that are supposedly pretty severe. So I don't know. I would say the Chargers, I don't know. I mean, it shows on the above the cap website that they have 30.6 million in cap room, but with some of their restructures, so maybe they could get it done. But read that trade again.
The Chargers would get Aiyuk and the 49ers 6th rounder for a 2024 second, a 2024 4th, and a 2025 conditional day 2 pick.
It's not awful. Not awful.
I think I would want one more. Since we're putting off things to 2025, I want 2 day 2 picks, conditional picks.
Yeah, I mean,
and if he has a 1,400-yard year for you, you get a pick back or something like that. Again, you put conditions on it.
Yeah, it's also a rough one to you're going to hand this guy to Harbaugh, and he's got Justin Herbert, and they only have the 2nd-year kid out of TCU. They kissed off on Mike Williams, same on Keenan Allen. I don't know. I mean, I'd be nervous about sending him to the Chargers just because he could really help the Chargers, and they could get over the top and wind up in the Super Bowl, and then you're looking really bad.
New England Patriots and Pittsburgh Steelers are the last 2 teams here. The Patriots would get Aiyuk and a 5th rounder for a 2024 second rounder, a 2024 4th rounder, and a 2025 second round pick from the Patriots. I think the Patriots got so much team building to do. They can't be giving away multiple second round picks over 2 drafts, right?
Well, there's another team. I mean, it's like hold these guys' feet to the fire and hold them over a barrel, and they have nothing. I mean, the Patriots have absolutely nothing. Now, you could look at it leverage-wise and say, well, the 49ers have, they're going to be paying their quarterback 50 times what they're paying him right now, most likely, and they probably can't afford, Aiyuk. But look at, Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas. I mean, that's really it. The rest of their signed KJ Osborne, who's, whatever you think of him. But the only receivers I like there are Bourne and Douglas. I mean, they don't have a quarterback. I mean, I kind of wonder if you're Aiyuk. I mean, if you somehow get involved in that trade, man, I mean, if you're all about winning, you're going to be in a rough spot. They're not going to win there for a while. I mean, they've got Jacoby Brissett at quarterback or a rookie, totally new coaching staff, defensive head coach. I don't know. I would say Aiyuk. If Aiyuk wants to win a ring, he better hope that deal doesn't go down.
Right. If I'm Brandon Aiyuk's agent, I'm going to say let's take a lesser deal somewhere else to keep you in the conversation of about to go to a Super Bowl. Then go to New England and maybe not be heard from in the postseason for a few years here. So
yeah, I mean, if you said when is New England likely to contend for a Super Bowl, I would say it's 3 to 5 years out.
Yeah, I would call it
that point. He's out of his prime, so he could be giving away any chance at winning a Super Bowl by being traded to New England.
Right. I think that the Patriots, how far away are they? They're a full football life cycle, which to me is always like 4 or 5 years. They're a full life cycle away from being a contender again. So
there was speculation about the Niners trading for Jabril Peppers. If Peppers is a decent free safety, if you could get him coming back as part of the deal and somehow sweeten it a little bit, maybe I'd be interested from the Niner perspective. But in some ways, I think that's almost like doing Aiyuk wrong, man. I almost feel like you're sending him to. I know they used to be a dynasty not that long ago, but in some ways, it's almost like NFL Siberia.
Yeah, they've changed. No, the Patriots ain't who they used to be. These aren't your daddy's Patriots no more. That's what happens when you say goodbye to Bill Belichick and Tom Brady.
Right.
So maybe the best deal on the board, and the one that, Larry, might sound the best to you, and this is from Bleacher Report again, talking about possible trades teams could make for Brandon Aiyuk, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And remember, this flirtation with the Pittsburgh Steelers is something that has already happened in the public space between Aiyuk and Tomlin. So maybe there would be a desire to get a deal done there. The Steelers would get Brandon Aiyuk and the 49ers 4th rounder, number 132, for this year's 1st rounder and a 3rd rounder. So Aiyuk and pick 132 for 2 top 100 picks. You'd have number 20 and number 98 in this upcoming draft for Brandon Aiyuk. Just from a return pick standpoint, that sounds the best to me.
You get the 20th pick, which you may be able to get J.C. Latham. You may be able to land,
Right.
the
tackle
LSU.
you didn't think you were going to get. The player that you thought would be off your board is probably there at 20.
Well, I mean, like some people that I've talked to, scouts wise, believe that Brian Thomas from LSU is going to be better than Brandon Aiyuk, and you might be able to get Brian Thomas Jr. at 24 and just go straight replacement. That's interesting. And then when you look at the offensive tackles, I think Alt, Fuaga, Fashanu for sure are gone, but Latham, Troy Fatanu, who's an absolute drive blocking menace. He can play guard, tackle. He's really impressive. Your guy, Amarius Mims, Tyler Guyton. I mean, you could put yourself right on the board to maybe select any of those 4 guys at 20.
Larry,
so that's intriguing.
Let's get really imaginative here. If the 49ers were to do that deal for Pittsburgh, and now they've got 2 first rounders, you've got 20 and 31. Well, you can package 20 and 31 and get up into the top 10. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
if you want to, but I mean, the Niners may need numbers.
Right, but
I'll say this too. I've been doing the deep dive on the wide receivers. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Let's say that they decided like Joe Alt. This is the kid we want above. Joe Alt.
He's going 7th to the Titans.
All right. Well, maybe the Titans would flip you 2.
That'd be incredible.
Flip you the Joe Alt pick for 2 first rounders. The Titans aren't about to win a Super Bowl. They're still building. They're not a year away. So I don't know. Just
interesting. It's interesting. There was one more deal on Bleacher Report that I saw yesterday. I was seeing if I could find it. It was basically the Niners trading Aiyuk to the Commanders for and I want to get this right if I can find it. But it was Aiyuk to the Commanders. The Commanders would trade. They wouldn't trade their obviously the second pick in the draft, but they would trade their 2nd round pick, which is like number 34 or 35. I mean, really high. It's like, obviously
one of the first picks of the 2nd round.
Yeah, like the top 2nd, one of the top 3 picks of the 2nd round. And next year, and a pick in the 2nd round, I believe, next year, and Jahan Dotson from Penn State. Now, Jahan Dotson's had 2 kind of underwhelming years, but man, Jahan Dotson has got a lot of talent. I mean, he's got really good ball skills. He can catch the ball in a crowd. I think he's gonna rebound and play better ball. Jahan Dotson with those ball skills, with Brock Purdy throwing him the ball, that's intriguing. And if you could get, I think it was like a 2nd and a 4th, and then like maybe a pick next year, that would be intriguing to me. Just because Dotson, at least, you've got let's see, here it is. I got to read it to you straight. Okay, it's Ayuk and a 6th-round pick to the Commanders for number 36 overall, which would be their 2nd-round pick, their 3rd-round pick this year. So you're getting both 36 and 67 this year. There's no deferred, which I think is good for the Niners because they're in their Super Bowl window. They want talent now. They don't want talent in a year. So 2024 2nd, 2024 3rd, and Jahan Dotson. To me, that's intriguing, Damon, because, man, I mean, you're still talking about, 2 players basically right there at the end of the 1st round, top of the 2nd. You've got the ability to move that thing down a little bit if you wanted to accumulate more picks. You got a legit starting wide receiver who could plug in for Aiyuk. I mean, nobody wants to really move Aiyuk. Let's have that discussion first. Nobody wants to move him. He's great. He's 26. He's one of the best receivers in football. It's all about what can you afford? So there's that. The more I did the deep dive on the wide receiver class, there are some guys that are going to be day 3 picks at wide receiver. One of them is the Georgia kid, Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, who's got really long arms. He's 6'2". He's 195. A lot of people like him. I saw Baldinger did a big thing on him. Rick Spielman did a big thing on him. He's really, really intriguing. But then if you even go further down the board, there are a lot of really exciting receivers. There's a guy named David White Jr. who, plays at Western Carolina, the Catamounts, I believe. And this guy, Damon,
the Western Carolina Catamounts.
Western Carolina Catamounts.
Let's go to the tape.
No,
I didn't get a lot of Catamount football out here on the West Coast this year, Larry. I'm unfamiliar with this player.
Okay, well, this was a player wwho started at Valdosta State and then transferred to the Western Carolina Catamounts.
I mean, that's a lateral move. You got to make it.
But, man, Damon, he's 6'4". He's 200 pounds. And if you watch this kid set up and run routes, I mean, he's got elite route running ability, and he showed it off at the Hula Bowl and the East West Shrine, and he just left people in his wake. I mean, it's the route running ability on this kid is really, really special.
How does that guy, if he is what you say he is, Larry, how does he end up where he ended up? If he's a physical specimen, beating SEC corners off the line, 6'4", but a catamount, what's wrong? I guess would be my question. He must be a blithering idiot. He must not know how to read a playbook or something. Like, how does a player like that end up there?
That's a great question. And you can spend a lot of time analyzing how did you get here, or you could just, I guarantee you, if we had this kid in for a podcast, I guarantee you there's a story. My mom was sick, or I didn't make grades, or, I was a late bloomer, or I didn't get serious until this happened, or whatever. But all I'm telling you is this
ran afoul of the law or something. I don't know.
There's something where, or maybe he's from a rural area and he wasn't scouted. I mean, there's really lots and lots of things.
Sure.
He's a Jacksonville, Florida kid. He went to Westside High School in Jacksonville. But, man, if you watch this guy run routes and you can see him just leaving guys, I mean, it's impressive, because usually some of the small school guys sometimes have route running deficiency, and it takes time for them to kind of get up to speed. But I'm just saying, if you're the 49ers and you're saying, okay, we got this cap problem. We owe Brock Purdy $50 million contract, and we can't afford our wide receivers anymore. We're going to have to move Aiyuk. You move Aiyuk for a couple of picks, like the Commanders are in this trade are giving you their 2, and the Commanders have 5 picks in the top 50 or something like that. So they have the ability to give you 2 picks. They give you 2 picks in Jahan Dotson, and then you go in the draft and you unearth David White Jr. out of Western Carolina and Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint out of Georgia, and you show up this summer and you're like, wait a second, these guys look pretty damn good. Now they're rookies, and there's going to be a developmental curve.
Right. And Kyle's going to hate him.
Kyle's going to hate him, and it's going to take some time. But you do have some real talented wide receivers, and you've got Jahan Dotson to start next to Debo and JJ. So, and you've saved tons of money. And you have 2 picks in the second and third round that you can utilize to build your team, and you could use day 3 picks to draft those replacement wide receivers. I'm just saying,
Larry, Larry, you've talked me into them. I'm burning 31, and I'm taking the Catamount at 31.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Tune into the Damon Bruce Show live on YouTube every weekday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific.